What is good, my pack? Mount Vernon Kid here, back again. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody is well, as always. Your Alpha is here because today, y'all see that background? It's been a while, right? It's been a while. We all listen to some scary stories by the homie, the man himself, Mr. Nightmare. Now, as always, when doing anything for Mr. Nightmare, depending on how many stories he tells, I usually always break it up. So you can go to the link in the description down below his channel to watch the last three, the last story. And seeing that this is called 3 Disturbing True Unknown Creature Stories, we only watching 2. You gotta watch that last one on the channel, on his channel. I'm a big fan of Mr. Nightmare. He tells really good stories, and sometimes I'm glad I'm doing this in the daytime. It is day outside, because I hate doing it at night, because then I start seeing things or jumping at shit, which I don't like. And last time I did it, I was freaking out because I could hear my neighbor, right, who lives next door to me, and his door creaks, and I was hearing all that shit, and that was kind of getting me freaked out. But anyway, we're going to watch this video right now. Hope you guys enjoy it. As always, let's do this. Alright, 3 disturbing true unknown creature stories. Let's go now. Story number 1, here we go.
So this happened on a camping trip with my girlfriend Alicia, my best friend Rodney, and his girlfriend Amanda. My dad told me about a perfect place to go camping right by a big lake surrounded by dense forest. A trail from a nearby parking lot would lead straight to the lake. His directions were straightforward, and it was actually easy to get to the lake. We got there as the sun was on its way down, and the sky was turning that beautiful orange. The lake was calming, and the sound of the breeze hitting the leaves was peaceful. We had our tent set up, and there was still a hint of orange in the sky, though it was very dark in the woods by now. There was a slight orange reflection on the calm lake. It was very warm out, and Amanda suggested we all jump in the water. I was kind of up for it, as my dad said it would be perfect to jump in. For that reason, we all brought towels. The girls seemed more eager than Rodney and I, though. The two got into their underwear and walked into the lake, exclaiming it was actually warm. I told them I'd go in after setting up the campfire at least, since we had already gathered some wood. Starting the fire proved to be especially difficult for me, because I just couldn't get the wood to catch. I'm not exactly a Boy Scout. Rodney took over, and as I watched him try to start the fire, one of the girls started screaming and flailing around in the lake. Amanda looked just as confused as Rodney and I. Then Alicia went underwater for a few seconds, and Amanda started to scream she's drowning. I took off my shirt and ran as fast as I could into the water. But when I got to where she was, the water was only up to maybe my waist. I saw her arms still flailing out above the water and splashing about, and I pulled her up above the water. I yelled, "What the hell happened?" She didn't answer right away and ran straight for the campsite, seemingly out of breath. Halfway there, she turned and yelled, "Get out of the water." Amanda and I looked at each other and listened. As I began moving out of the lake, I felt something strong grab around my ankle and try pulling me down. There was a sharp, piercing feeling cutting into my ankle as well.
Octopus?
I yelled in a panic and kicked whatever it was with my free leg until I was able to break free. We made it back to the campsite, and Alicia was already sitting down on a cooler, putting pressure on an apparent wound on her ankle. I sat down on another cooler and checked my ankle, and there was a deep but small gash on the right side of my ankle which was pouring out blood. I told Rodney to get us both some band-aids from my first aid kit in the tent. After patching up the wounds, we felt more relaxed and at ease. We just wanted to figure out what the hell that was that grabbed us. I said it might have been an eel. Rodney questioned if eels even live in lakes like this. Alicia said it didn't feel like an eel or a fish. It felt more like a claw. I got chills as she said it, because I got what she was saying. But how would that make any sense? Regardless, we stuck around because whatever got us was in the water, and we were on land. Nothing could happen now. By this point, it was dark out. The sun was completely gone, and the only light was from the fire. We were a couple beers deep, talking about life, about mutual friends, and occasionally bringing up that thing in the water again. All was well, until a splash came from out in the water. We all looked over our shoulders at the same time out to the pitch-black lake. Probably just a fish, we figured. We resumed conversation for a few seconds, but then there was another splash. It didn't sound like a little fish jumping out of the water. It sounded like the kind of splashes you'd hear when a person is walking through waist-deep water.
Are we talking creature?
The girls
of
wanted
Black
us to go
Lagoon
check
here?
the lake, so Rodney and I took a couple flashlights and went to the edge of the lake, where we were still hearing noises. With the two lights pointed at the water, we scanned the calm surface of the lake until Rodney stopped me and said, "What is that?" I looked at where his light was pointed. There was this object in the water. Well, at first I thought it was an object, but then I realized it resembled the head of some creature. Definitely not any kind of creature that would live in a lake. It seemed like it was just sticking its head out of the water, and we could see the reflection of its eyes. It was looking at us. Then it moved, as it rised up slightly out of the lake, making another splashing noise. That's when Rodney and I screamed "go" to the girls. I remember Rodney saying, "Take all your important stuff and go," which was a smart idea. I took all my valuables and left the tent and bigger things. We ran back down the trail to the parking lot, packed the car, and took off down the parkway. The next day, I returned with my dad to collect the tents, but everything that we left in the campsite was destroyed. The tents were shredded, the coolers were scratched and thrown across the site. I told my dad about the creature in the lake. I showed him the gash in my ankle and asked him what could have done this. He said he had no earthly idea, and we left in a hurry. None of us ever returned to that lake.
Nope. Story number 2.
My house sits next to a nature preserve on Long Island, New York. I live alone most of the time, besides when my girlfriend who lives out of state
Long
comes
Island,
to visit.
huh? Okay.
Well, I can't say I live completely alone. I have 2 German shepherds, Tate and Moose. They sleep downstairs by the back door of the house. Last week,
guy's
for
voice is
3 nights in a
creepy,
row,
yo.
I would wake up to the 2 of them barking in the middle of the night at the back door. The first night, I just peeked from the door window into the yard, which was empty. The second night, I actually went outside to the patio to look around, but there wasn't anyone there. On the 3rd night in a row of waking up to barking, I told myself that was it. Someone was creeping around my property every night, causing my dogs to go crazy. I put Tate on his leash and took him out to the yard. Weirdly, he seemed more calm now that he was outside. He wasn't barking at anything. I walked him around the backyard and by the tree line to the woods for a little bit, trying to help him pick up on whatever the 2 had been barking at the past 3 nights. Then he started. By the tree line, he started tugging on his leash and barking at something in the woods. Obviously, I couldn't see too far into the woods as it was nighttime, so I let him lead the way into the woods. If someone were to be trespassing on my property every night, I figured the best way to scare them off would be having my dog chase after them. Tate kept pulling and barking as we got deeper
You ain't
into
gonna
the
let your
woods.
dog go, right, dude?
I was starting to lose my
Fuck
breath
that.
just
Don't
trying
let
to
your
keep up
dog
with
go.
him. He seemed to be really locked into something specific in front of us. But eventually Tate stopped pulling and barking and just stood there with his ears bent back as if he were in a defensive position. He suddenly looked scared, as if he was looking straight ahead at something. I tried looking ahead into the dark woods, but I could only see so much. There was this cracking of a stick or small branch a little ahead that confirmed there was a presence with us in the woods. I took this as a time to call out, "Whoever's out there, you need to stop trespassing on my property. If you don't, I'll either unleash my dogs on you or call the police. Whichever I feel necessary to do." There was no kind of response or signs of
Don't
acknowledgement.
let your dog go.
Just another crunch of a twig or stick being pressed into the ground by something. Once again confirming there was someone or something standing maybe 10 yards away. I whistled to Tate to follow as I turned us around and headed back to the house. Tate kept looking back every 3 seconds. I'd have to pull him forward just to keep us moving. But then I heard a footstep close behind us, and Tate started to growl and bark again. It was now that I truly started to feel threatened. I didn't have my phone on me, I didn't have my flashlight, my only sense of protection was Tate. Then there was this sound, this unexplainable sound. It was this clicking type noise mixed with this humming sound, almost like a giant bug. Tate started going crazy again. He was barking and pulling, but I held him back.
Yes, hold your dog.
I kept looking at what he was trying to lunge towards, and I finally saw something. There was a set of glowing eyes, only the eyes were set very high off the ground, not down low like from a cat or raccoon. I started to run back towards my house now. I could see the light from my back patio shining through the trees now. I made it through the tree line back to my backyard. I ran Tate to the back door and let him inside. I turned back to the trees at the opposite end of my yard and I just stood there, listening and waiting for anything. A rustle in the bush made me turn my head about 20 degrees to the right. I saw a figure standing in the woods near the tree line. My patio light lit up the outline of the body somewhat. It looked like it had the shape of a humanoid-like figure, but it was crouched down, kind of hiding behind a little bush. It had extremely long-looking arms in comparison to the rest of its body, and on the lower half of its face, all I saw was black, almost resembling a big gaping mouth. I keep saying it because I knew what I was looking at couldn't be human. I went inside, shut all the blinds, and took my dogs upstairs to my room. I reported an unidentified creature in the preserve to the police.
Yeah, it's gonna make you look real
I
good.
gave my best description on the phone, and the woman on the other end asked me to call back if the person or creature were to actually enter my private property. Basically, calling the police was for my own peace of mind. But they didn't send anyone.
Of course
I've
not.
been having my dog sleep in my room with me since last week, and there have been no further sightings since. I'll update everyone if anything changes.
Alright, my dudes, I'm gonna end it right there. By the time this video goes up, I have probably would already seen all of it. But as you all know, guys, I like to chop up these videos. So if you want to check out the last video, the last story, the story number 3, the link in the description down below for Mr. Nightmare's channel, as always. These stories are pretty good, you know, not too. I mean, usually when Mr. Nightmare tells these stories, I get a sense my crazy imagination starts to envision what the story's about. Unknown creature. Okay, let's talk about the lake monster. Okay, I'm thinking something like humanoid, like the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's the best way I can describe it. The bug noise that the last story, further, his voice alone in the second story was kind of creepy. But I was afraid he was gonna say, "I'll let my dog go to go chase." No, don't you do that! Don't you do that! I was about to say, if this fool lets his dog go, like, nah, don't do that. You know, don't do that. I'm sorry, like, don't do that. But he didn't. But the fact that he said he saw, like, it was like a bug creature, I'm like, okay, was it a giant cicada or some shit? Like, and then that picture that they used, that's supposed to be the Wraith or something like that. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay indeed. But as always, guys, this is Mr. Nightmare, and he tells good stories. Don't get it twisted. He tells good stories. But with that being said, this is my friend Kid saying peace and love. Stay tuned. Keep it real, my back. As always,